My name is Alice Sanchez. At 34, I thought I had my life figured out. Marketing manager at a respectable firm in Denver. Married to my college sweetheart Mark, mother to our wonderful son Jason, and recently promoted to grandmother when Jason and his wife Rebecca had little Emma. I'd always been taught that family meant unconditional support, that blood was thicker than water, that no matter what happened, your family would have your back. I couldn't have been more wrong. It was a dreary March evening when everything changed. I stood outside the Grand Windsor Hotel in downtown Denver. Rain pouring down my face, mixing with tears I couldn't control. My designer heels, the ones I'd saved 3 months for, sank into puddles as passing cars splashed dirty water onto my black dress. I didn't care. I couldn't feel anything except the burning humiliation coursing through my veins. I was out of the 77 hours at the reading, my daughter-in-law had announced to the entire room, her voice carrying across the hushed gathering of family and friends. And then the lawyer, my father's trusted attorney of 30 years, couldn't stop laughing, actually laughing at my exclusion from my father's fortune. Everyone in that room thought I was the family failure, the disappointment, the one who couldn't measure up. If only they knew the cards I was holding. What I did next changed everything. For me, for my so-called family, and especially for Rebecca. Let me take you back to where it began. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Denver, the daughter of Linda and Robert Sanchez. My parents worked hard. My father built a property development company from nothing, while my mother managed their social climb with precision. I was their only child, and while they provided everything I needed materially, emotional warmth was scarce in our household. "Alice, stand up straight," my mother would whisper harshly at social gatherings. "Remember, appearances matter more than anything." I met Mark Wilson during my sophomore year at Colorado State. He was studying business, came from a wealthy family, and had the kind of easy confidence that comes from never wondering if you belong. We fell in love despite our different backgrounds, and to everyone's surprise, especially his parents, we married after graduation. Mark's family never quite warmed to me. His mother, Elizabeth, would invite us for Sunday dinners and spend the entire time reminiscing about Mark's ex-girlfriends from good families. His father, William, would talk business with Mark and ignore my presence entirely. "You'll get used to them," Mark would assure me. "They're just old-fashioned." We had Jason when we were both 25, and for a while, things were good. Mark joined his father's investment firm. I built my career in marketing, and we created a comfortable life in a modest suburban home. My parents, seeing Mark's family's wealth, suddenly took more interest in our lives, especially in Jason, their only grandchild. Then Jason met Rebecca Campbell at a charity gala when they were both 22. Rebecca was everything I wasn't. Tall, blonde, from old money, with connections throughout Denver's elite circles. She had never worked a day in her life, maintaining her influencer status through carefully curated social media posts showcasing her luxury lifestyle. From the moment she entered our lives, everything changed. My in-laws adored her, my parents were enchanted by her, and slowly, methodically, she began to edge me out of my own family. "Jason, darling," she would say, loud enough for me to hear. "Your mother's taste is so quaint. We simply must redecorate your childhood bedroom before the holidays." The first major incident happened when Jason and Rebecca announced their engagement. They wanted a lavish wedding, Instagram-worthy, Rebecca called it, but claimed they were saving for a house down payment. "We're thinking of starting small," Jason had said during a family dinner. "Maybe just close family at the botanical gardens." "Nonsense," Rebecca had interjected. "We need something spectacular, but we're being responsible adults, saving for our future." That's when my mother stepped in. "Alice, don't you have some money saved? You could help them have the wedding they deserve." Before I could respond, Rebecca added, "We would pay you back, of course, once Jason's promotion comes through." Against Mark's advice, I transferred $40,000 from my personal savings to them, the money I'd been setting aside for years, planning to start my own marketing consultancy. The wedding was indeed spectacular. At the Crystal Ballroom of the Fairmont Hotel, 300 guests, champagne fountains, ice sculptures, and a designer gown for Rebecca that cost more than my car. When I asked about repayment 6 months later, Rebecca looked confused. "Oh, Alice," she said with a tinkling laugh, "that was your gift to us. Everyone understood that." My parents took her side. "Alice, how could you be so petty? It was your son's wedding." The pattern continued. Rebecca would make demands. I would try to set boundaries. And my family, including Mark, who was increasingly under her influence, would make me feel like I was being unreasonable. When Rebecca announced her pregnancy, my mother called me immediately. "Alice, this is your chance to make things right. Rebecca will need support, and you need to be there for her without any of your issues." "What issues, Mom?" "You know what I mean. Your jealousy, your pettiness. Rebecca is giving you a grandchild. You should be grateful." I swallowed my anger and did everything I could to support them. I painted the nursery. I organized the baby shower. I researched the safest cribs and car seats. And when little Emma was born, I took 2 weeks off work to help while Rebecca recovered. During those 2 weeks, I realized the extent of Rebecca's manipulation. She would deliberately exclude me from photos with the baby, then post tearful Instagram stories about how some people just don't want to be involved in Emma's life. She would wait until I was holding Emma, then suddenly announce it was feeding time and snatch her away just as family members walked in, making it seem like I was reluctant to give the baby back. "It's just new mom anxiety," Mark said when I tried to explain what was happening. "You're being too sensitive." But the final straw came after my father's unexpected death from a heart attack. The reading of his will was scheduled at the Hamilton Plaza in Chicago, where my father had established his most successful property developments. The entire extended family attended: aunts, uncles, cousins, plus business associates and friends, about 150 people in all. I sat between Mark and my mother in the front row, dressed in a simple black dress and the pearl necklace my father had given me for my 30th birthday. Rebecca sat on the other side of my mother, Jason beside her, little Emma asleep in her carrier. My father's attorney, Mr. Goldstein, began reading the will. Various properties and investments were distributed among business partners and extended family. Then came the main inheritance, the $77 million fortune my father had amassed over his lifetime. And to my beloved granddaughter-in-law, Rebecca Wilson, who has brought such joy to our family and who has the business acumen to truly appreciate my legacy, I leave the sum of— Mr. Goldstein paused, adjusted his glasses, and continued. "I leave the sum of $10 million in my shares in Sanchez Development Corp." Gasps echoed through the room. Rebecca's face lit up with triumph as she squeezed my mother's hand. Mr. Goldstein continued reading, allocating various amounts to cousins, charities, and longtime employees. My name wasn't mentioned. When the reading concluded, people began mingling, offering condolences and congratulations where appropriate. I sat frozen in my seat, unable to process what had happened. My own father had left me nothing, not even a memento, while giving millions to Rebecca, who had only been in our family for 5 years. I felt a hand on my shoulder and looked up to see my mother's friend, Margaret. "Alice, dear, I'm so sorry," she whispered. "This doesn't seem right." Before I could respond, Rebecca's voice cut through the murmur of conversation. "I was out of the 77 cents at the reading," she announced loudly to a group of my cousins, gesturing toward me. "Can you believe it? 0. Mr. Goldstein, who was passing by with a glass of whiskey, let out a hearty laugh. "Robert always knew who had the financial sense in the family," he added, raising his glass to Rebecca. The room seemed to spin around me. I stood up, grabbed my purse, and walked out as steadily as I could, ignoring Mark calling my name. Outside, the rain had started, fat drops quickly soaking through my thin dress. I made it to my Honda CR-V before the tears came, hot and angry down my cheeks. A tap on my window startled me. It was my mother-in-law, Elizabeth, her expensive umbrella protecting her perfectly styled hair. I rolled down the window slightly. Alice, she said, her voice gentler than I'd ever heard it. I know you're upset. Mom, I said, using the term I'd never felt comfortable with. Grandpa Wilson always told me he wanted me to have his vintage watch collection for Jason. Why did it go to Rebecca's brother instead? Elizabeth's face hardened. Alice, you need to understand how these things work in families like ours. Rebecca understands our values, our traditions. She fits. And I don't. It wasn't a question. You've had 15 years to learn, dear. She patted my hand condescendingly. Some people just aren't meant for certain circles. As she walked away, something broke inside me, and something else, something harder, colder, more determined, took its place. That night, sitting in our hotel room while Mark slept soundly beside me, I made a vow. I would never let them walk over me again. Not Rebecca, not my parents, not the Wilsons, no one. What none of them knew, what I had kept carefully hidden for the past 4 years, was that I wasn't the financial failure they all thought I was. It had started small. After the wedding fiasco, I realized I needed my own money, separate from our joint accounts that Mark increasingly controlled. I began taking on freelance marketing projects on weekends and evenings, building a client base of small businesses that needed affordable but professional services. With my first $5,000 in freelance earnings, I consulted a financial advisor, not from the firm where Mark worked, but a woman I'd met at a marketing conference who specialized in helping women achieve financial independence. Diversify, she advised, and keep it quiet until you're secure. I registered an LLC called Cozy Crafts, a name so stereotypically feminine that no one in my family would give it a second thought. Under this business umbrella, I expanded from marketing services to investing in promising startups, particularly women-owned businesses that my in-laws and husband would have dismissed. One of these investments, a sustainable packaging company founded by 2 women engineers, hit the jackpot when their patent for eco-friendly food containers was licensed by a major national grocery chain. My initial $15,000 investment returned nearly $300,000 in the first year of licensing deals. I reinvested everything, never changing my outward lifestyle. I still clipped coupons. I still drove my 8-year-old Honda. I still bought clothes from department store sales. Meanwhile, my portfolio grew. By the time of my father's will reading, 4 years after starting my secret financial life, Cozy Crafts LLC had assets worth over $3.1 million. I owned minority stakes in 3 up-and-coming Denver restaurants. I had a real estate portfolio of small but profitable rental properties in emerging neighborhoods. And no one, not Mark, not Jason, and certainly not Rebecca, had any idea. The morning after the will reading, I made my first overt move. While Mark was in the shower, I called Jackson Morrison, the founder of Morrison & Associates, one of Denver's most prestigious law firms. I need a consultation, I said when his assistant put me through. It's about protecting substantial assets during a potential divorce and dealing with family financial manipulation. There was a pause before Jackson responded. I have an opening at 9 tomorrow morning. Mrs. Sanchez. I'll be there. I hung up just as Mark emerged from the bathroom. Who was that? He asked, toweling his hair. Just confirming our flight back to Denver, I lied smoothly. How are you feeling today? Mark sighed. I still don't understand why you left so abruptly yesterday. Rebecca was really upset. She thought you were jealous of her inheritance. I swallowed the angry retort that threatened to escape. Instead, I smiled sadly. I just needed some air. It was emotional, losing Dad and all. Well, Mom invited us all to breakfast downstairs. Rebecca wants to discuss investing her new capital. You should come. It might help you learn something about finance. In that moment, I made a decision that would dictate all my actions moving forward. I would play the role they had assigned me, the financially naive, emotionally fragile Alice, while systematically preparing to destroy the facade of our family relationships. That sounds nice, I said. I'll just finish getting ready. Over the next few weeks, I became the perfect daughter-in-law, mother, and wife. I listened attentively as Rebecca detailed her plans for her inheritance. I nodded sympathetically when my mother complained about the difficulties of managing my father's estate. I supported Mark as he jockeyed for position as Rebecca's financial advisor. Meanwhile, I methodically gathered evidence. Every belittling email from Rebecca went into a special folder. Every text message where she or my mother or Mark dismissed my ideas or suggestions was screenshotted and saved. Every financial document showing my secret success was organized and secured. I met with Jackson Morrison 3 times, outlining my situation in detail and developing a comprehensive strategy. "You understand," he said during our 3rd meeting, "that this will likely end your marriage and potentially damage your relationship with your son." I nodded, feeling a strange calm. "My marriage ended years ago, Mr. Morrison, and as for Jason, I have to believe that when he sees the truth, he'll make the right choice." "And what is the truth, Mrs. Sanchez?" I leaned forward. "That for years, I've been systematically manipulated, gaslighted, and exploited by the people who should have loved me most, and that I'm no longer willing to accept it." Jackson nodded, making a note in his leather-bound portfolio. "Then let's proceed with Phase 1. Phase 1 involved securing my assets. With Jackson's help, I transferred my business holdings to an irrevocable trust that would be difficult for Mark to claim in a divorce. I updated my will, leaving everything to Jason directly, with explicit exclusion of Rebecca should they be married at the time of my death. I also began quietly withdrawing from family obligations. I missed Sunday dinners due to work commitments. I rescheduled planned shopping trips with Rebecca. I was too busy to babysit Emma on the evenings when Rebecca had her social media live streams. Rebecca noticed first. "Alice," she texted one evening, "is everything okay? You seem distant lately." "Just busy with work," I replied. "End of quarter reports." "Well, don't forget Jason's birthday dinner next week. Your mother has been planning it for ages." Jason's birthday dinner, at 30, my son was still celebrated like a child, with my mother and Rebecca co-organizing elaborate parties that somehow always excluded my input. This year, they had chosen the Blue Oak Bistro, ironically, one of the restaurants I secretly co-owned. The head chef, Gabriella, was a fierce woman who had approached me for investment after 6 banks denied her loans. Now, 2 years later, the restaurant had a 3-month waiting list. Except, of course, for family members of silent investors. The evening of Jason's birthday, I arrived early and slipped into the kitchen through the staff entrance. "Alice!" Gabriella exclaimed, wiping her hands on her apron before embracing me. "I didn't know you were coming tonight." "It's my son's birthday dinner," I explained. "But no one knows about my involvement here, remember?" Gabriella's eyes widened. "The Wilson party? That's your son?" I nodded. "His wife has been challenging," Gabriella said diplomatically. "She's called 3 times to change the menu, and she tried to get one of my servers fired because he didn't recognize her from Instagram." "I'm not surprised," I sighed. "Listen, could you do me a favor? I'd like a specific table tonight." Gabriella raised an eyebrow. "The owner's table? With the view of both the kitchen and the dining room?" "Exactly, but please, treat me like any other guest." "Of course," she hesitated. "Alice, is everything okay? You seem, different?" I smiled. "Things are changing, Gabriella, but it's all good." When I entered the dining room from the front entrance, the maitre d' greeted me with a knowing smile. "Mrs. Sanchez, welcome. Your party has just arrived, but requested to wait for you before being seated." I spotted them near the bar. Mark, Jason, Rebecca, my mother, and the Wilsons. Rebecca was wearing a new designer dress, her hair and makeup flawless as she posed for a selfie with Jason. "Mom!" Jason called, waving me over. "We thought you might not make it." "I wouldn't miss your birthday," I said, kissing his cheek. 30 years ago today, you made me a mother." Rebecca subtly rolled her eyes. "We have a reservation at 7, and it's already 5 past. This place is impossible to get into. I had to name-drop 3 people to secure the booking. I bit back a smile as the maitre d' approached. "Mrs. Wilson, your table is ready?" We followed him through the busy restaurant, past the coveted window tables where Rebecca had undoubtedly requested to be seated, toward the back corner where the owner's table sat partially secluded yet with perfect views. "There must be some mistake," Rebecca said sharply. "I specifically asked for a window table." "I apologize, Mrs. Wilson, but this is our finest table," the maitre d' replied smoothly, "reserved for special guests only." "Do you know who I am?" Rebecca hissed. "I have over 200,000 followers. One bad review from me." "Rebecca," I interrupted gently, "it's a lovely table, and tonight is about Jason, not the view." Rebecca shot me a venomous look, but allowed herself to be seated. As we settled in, servers appeared with complimentary champagne and appetizers. "We didn't order these," my mother said, confused. "Chef's compliments," our server explained, with a small nod in my direction that only I noticed. Throughout dinner, I watched my family interact, the way Mark deferred to his parents, the way Jason sought Rebecca's approval before voicing an opinion, the way my mother fawned over Rebecca while barely acknowledging me. These dynamics weren't new, but seeing them through my newly empowered perspective was illuminating. I wasn't angry anymore. I was fascinated, like an anthropologist observing a strange tribal ritual. "Alice," Elizabeth Wilson said suddenly, "you're unusually quiet tonight." All eyes turned to me. "Just enjoying the excellent food," I replied. "And the company, of course." "Well, we have exciting news," Rebecca announced, reaching for Jason's hand. "We've decided it's time for Emma to have a sibling, and with Grandpa Sanchez's generous inheritance, we're going to buy the Palmer Mansion in Cherry Hills." Exclamations of delight erupted around the table. The Palmer Mansion was a well-known Denver landmark, a 15,000-square-foot historic estate that had been on the market for $12 million. "That's wonderful news," I said calmly. "When is the home inspection?" Rebecca blinked. "Home inspection?" "For a property that old, you'll want a thorough inspection," I explained, "especially of the foundation and the original plumbing. Historic homes can hide expensive problems." Well, we haven't gotten that far yet," Rebecca stammered. "We only toured it yesterday." "Actually," Jason added, "we've already put in an offer. Rebecca fell in love with it." "I'm sure she did," I murmured. My mother leaned forward. "Alice, not everyone obsesses over practical details like you do. Some people have vision." "Vision doesn't fix cracked foundations." "Mom," I replied, "but I'm sure Rebecca and Jason know what they're doing." An uncomfortable silence fell over the table, broken when Gabriella emerged from the kitchen. "Good evening," she said, approaching our table. "I wanted to personally ensure that everything is to your satisfaction." "The food is excellent," Mark said. "Are you the chef?" "Gabriella Mendez," she introduced herself, "head chef and co-owner." Rebecca straightened. "Your salmon is overcooked, and the sauce is too acidic." Jason looked mortified. "Honey, it's delicious." "No. Jason, she should know. A restaurant this expensive should have perfect execution." Rebecca fixed Gabriella with a challenging stare. "And the service has been mediocre at best." Gabriella's expression remained professional, but I saw the flash of anger in her eyes. "I apologize if the meal doesn't meet your expectations. Mrs. Wilson, perhaps you'd prefer a different entree? On the house, of course." "That won't be necessary," I interjected. "Everything is wonderful. Gabriella, thank you." Gabriella nodded, her eyes meeting mine briefly before she returned to the kitchen. "God, the nerve," Rebecca muttered, "acting like she's doing us a favor. Do you know how many restaurants would kill for me to post about them?" "Maybe we should order dessert," Jason suggested, clearly trying to change the subject. "It is my birthday, after all." As the evening wound down and we waited for the check, Rebecca excused herself to the restroom. My mother and Elizabeth huddled together, discussing plans for Emma's second birthday, still months away. Mark and William were deep in conversation about stock options. Our server approached with a black folder. "Your bill has been taken care of," he he said quietly. By whom? Jason asked, surprised. The server glanced at me, then back to Jason. One of our investors. They said to wish you a happy birthday, sir. After dinner, as we gathered outside waiting for the valets to bring our cars, Rebecca pulled me aside. What was that about? She demanded. Did you know someone at the restaurant? No, I lied smoothly. Why would you think that? The chef kept looking at you, the special table, the comped bill. Her eyes narrowed. You're up to something, Alice. I smiled. Rebecca, I think you're giving me too much credit. I'm just a middle-class marketing manager, remember? Not someone who would know important people at exclusive restaurants. Rebecca studied me for a moment longer, then shrugged. Whatever. Listen, I wanted to ask if you could watch Emma this weekend. Jason and I are flying to Aspen to look at vacation properties. I'm sorry, I can't, I said. I have work commitments. On a weekend? Again? Rebecca's perfectly plucked eyebrows rose. You know, for someone so dedicated to family, you've been remarkably absent lately. We all have priorities, Rebecca, I replied. Yours is buying multi-million-dollar properties. Mine is my career. My inheritance makes working optional, she said smugly. Something you wouldn't understand. I thought of my growing investment portfolio, the profitable businesses I owned, the plans I had set in motion. No, I suppose I wouldn't. 2 days later, I received a text from Jason. Mom, what's going on with you and Rebecca? She says you were really rude at dinner. I sighed and called him instead of texting back. When he answered, I could hear Emma babbling in the background. Hey, sweetie, I said. Is this a good time to talk? Yeah, Rebecca's at yoga. What's going on? Mom? You've been different lately. I chose my words carefully. I've been doing a lot of thinking since Grandpa died. About family, about what's important. And I realized I've spent too many years trying to please people who will never be pleased. I'm not doing that anymore. Jason was quiet for a moment. Is this about the will? Because I was shocked too. Mom, but Grandpa must have had his reasons. This isn't about money, Jason. It's about respect. Something that's been missing from how this family treats me for a long time. That's not fair, he protested. We all respect you. Do you? I asked gently. When was the last time you defended me when Rebecca made one of her little digs? Or when Grandma Wilson implied I wasn't good enough for your father? Or when my own mother took everyone's side but mine? More silence. Jason, I love you. You're my son. And nothing will ever change that. But I'm making some changes in my life, and not everyone is going to like them. What kind of changes? His voice was wary. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. I've filed for divorce from your father. His sharp intake of breath told me this was entirely unexpected. What? Why? Dad will be devastated. Your father has known this was coming for a long time. Jason, our marriage has been over in all but name for years. Does he know you filed? He will tomorrow, I said. I wanted to tell you first. Mom, please reconsider. Family should stay together. We can work through whatever this is. Some things can't be fixed, sweetheart, and sometimes staying together does more damage than moving apart. After we hung up, I sat in my home office, surrounded by the documentation of my secret financial life. Tomorrow, Mark would be served divorce papers at his office. Tomorrow. My mother would receive a certified letter informing her that I was contesting my father's will. Tomorrow. The first phase of my plan would be complete. I felt a strange mixture of sadness and liberation. For so long, I had defined myself by my relationships to others. Daughter, wife, mother. Now, I was defining myself on my own terms. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. We need to talk about what you said to Jason. Family dinner at our house. 7 p.m. tomorrow. Everyone will be there. Perfect timing, I texted back. I'll be there. The next evening, I drove to Jason and Rebecca's sprawling Tudor-style home in one of Denver's most exclusive neighborhoods. As expected, all the family cars were already parked in the circular driveway. Mark's BMW, my mother's Mercedes, the Wilsons' Range Rover. I checked my appearance in the rearview mirror before getting out. I had visited an exclusive salon that morning, trading my practical bob for a sophisticated layered cut that framed my face perfectly. My usual minimal makeup had been replaced by a professional application that enhanced my features without looking overdone, and instead of my typical department store clothes, I wore a stunning crimson dress from a boutique designer, the first piece I'd purchased from my own money that reflected my true financial status. Taking a deep breath, I walked to the front door and rang the bell. Rebecca answered, her smile faltering as she took in my appearance. "Alice, you look different." "Thank you," I said, stepping past her into the foyer. "Is everyone here?" "In the living room," she replied, following me. "We were just discussing—" She stopped as we entered the living room and everyone turned to look at me. Mark's face was ashen. He'd clearly been served the divorce papers. My mother looked furious. The Wilsons appeared confused. Only Jason seemed concerned rather than angry. "Mom," he said, rising from his seat. "What's going on? Dad told us about the divorce papers." "And I've just come from my lawyer's office," my mother added, her voice tight. "You're contesting your father's will? After everything we've done for you?" I smiled calmly. "Perhaps we should all sit down. We have a lot to discuss." "There's nothing to discuss," Rebecca snapped. "You're clearly having some kind of midlife crisis, and it's affecting the entire family." "Rebecca," I said, maintaining my composure, "I understand why you might think that. For years, you've all seen me as the family doormat, the one who gives and never asks for anything in return, the one who can be insulted, manipulated, and exploited without consequences." "That's ridiculous," my mother protested. "No one thinks of you that way." "Really?" I opened my designer handbag and withdrew a small stack of papers. "Shall I read some examples? Like when Rebecca told Jason I was financially illiterate and shouldn't be trusted with Emma's college fund? Or when you, Mom, told the Wilsons that I was never good with money, just like her father before he smartened up? Or perhaps when Mark told his golf buddies that he manages the finances because Alice would spend it all on shoes?" Uncomfortable glances were exchanged around the room. "You've been spying on us?" Rebecca demanded. "No, I've been paying attention. There's a difference." I set the papers on the coffee table. "But that's not why I called this meeting." "You didn't call this meeting?" Rebecca corrected. "I did." "Semantics," I waved dismissively. "The point is, I'm here to clear the air once and for all." Mark finally spoke, his voice strained. "Alice, if this is about money, we can discuss it privately. There's no need to involve everyone." "Oh, but there is," I replied, "because what I'm about to share affects everyone in this room." I took out my phone and pulled up a specific email, then handed it to Jason. "Read this, please." Jason frowned but took the phone. "It's an investment summary for Cozy Crafts LLC?" "Keep reading." His eyes widened. "This says the portfolio value is 3.1 million. Mom, what is this?" "That, Jason, is my company. The one I've been building in secret for the past 4 years, while all of you thought I was just a middle-class marketing manager with no financial sense." Stunned silence filled the room. "That's impossible," Rebecca finally sputtered. "You don't have that kind of money." "Don't I?" I turned to her. "Do you know who owns the Blue Oak Bistro? Where we had Jason's birthday dinner? I do, well, 25% of it. Anyway, along with shares in Tuscany Gardens and Silver Spoon." Mark's face had gone from ashen to crimson. "You've been hiding assets? That's illegal. Alice?" "No, Mark, it's not. Everything was properly registered and reported on my separate tax returns, the ones you never bothered to look at because you were too busy managing our money." "I don't believe any of this," my mother declared. "You're making it up to get attention." I laughed. "Mom, I haven't wanted your attention in years. What I wanted was respect, and since I couldn't get it through normal family dynamics, I decided to earn it the only way this family understands, through financial success." I turned to Rebecca. "You've made it clear from day one that you think I'm beneath you. that I don't belong in the same social circles, that my son married down when he chose me as his mother. I never said, "You didn't have to say it. You showed it in every interaction, every dismissive comment, every time you took credit for my ideas or contributions." I stepped closer to her. "And at my father's will reading, you couldn't resist twisting the knife, could you? I was out of the 77s at the reading. Those were your exact words, weren't they?" Rebecca's face paled. "That was a private conversation that you had in a room full of people, loud enough for everyone to hear," I corrected, including my father's attorney, who found it amusing enough to laugh out loud. I turned to address the entire room. "I've filed for divorce because my marriage has been dead for years. I'm contesting my father's will not because I want or need his money, but because his final act of dismissing me deserves to be challenged. And I'm revealing my financial status now because I'm done pretending to be less than I am to make all of you feel superior." Elizabeth Wilson cleared her throat. "Alice, I think you're being unnecessarily dramatic. Whatever issues you have with Rebecca could be resolved privately." "This isn't just about Rebecca," I replied. "It's about all of you, the way you've treated me as an outsider for 15 years, the way you've undermined me to my own son, the way you've made me feel like I don't deserve a place at the table." I turned to Jason, whose expression had shifted from shock to something more complex. "Jason, I love you. You're my son, and nothing will ever change that. But I will no longer tolerate being disrespected in my own family." "What are you saying, Mom?" he asked quietly. "I'm saying that from now on, things will be different. I won't be available to babysit when Rebecca has Instagram sessions. I won't loan money for extravagant purchases. I won't sit silently while my character and intelligence are insulted." I took a deep breath. "And if that means some relationships change, then so be it." Rebecca suddenly laughed, a harsh sound that cut through the tension. "This is absurd. Even if you have made some money with your little crafting company, you're still not in our league. My inheritance is $10 million I finished for her. A substantial amount, certainly, but not the $77 million you've been implying to everyone, and certainly not enough to justify the level of arrogance you've displayed." "How dare you?" "No, Rebecca," I interrupted firmly. "How dare you? How dare all of you treat me like I'm nothing when I've given everything to this family?" Mark stood up abruptly. "I think we should go. Alice, we can discuss the divorce with our attorneys." "My attorney," I corrected. "Jackson Morrison. Perhaps you've heard of him? He doesn't usually handle divorces, but he made an exception for me." Mark's face fell. Morrison was known as one of the toughest attorneys in Colorado. "Alice, be reasonable." "I am being reasonable, more reasonable than any of you deserve." I picked up my handbag. "I'll see myself out." As I turned to leave, Jason called out, "Mom, wait!" I paused at the doorway. "Is this really what you want?" he asked, his voice breaking slightly. "To break up the family?" I looked at my son, my beautiful, kind-hearted boy who had somehow survived this toxic family dynamic with his basic decency intact. "Jason, I'm not breaking up the family. I'm setting boundaries. There's a difference." I smiled sadly. "Call me when you're ready to talk. Just you and me. I'll always be there for you." With that, I walked out of the house, got into my Honda, and drove away. As I turned onto the main road, my phone began buzzing with texts and calls. I ignored them all. Instead, I called Gabriella at the Blue Oak. "Alice, how did it go?" "Exactly as expected," I replied. "Is that dinner offer still open? I could use some good company tonight." "Of course. I'll have your table ready." I smiled to myself as I drove toward the restaurant. This wasn't the end of the story. Not by a long shot. There would be legal battles, family drama, and difficult conversations ahead. But for the first time in years, I was steering my own course. I was Alice Sanchez, successful entrepreneur and investor. I was nobody's doormat anymore. And as painful as this transformation had been, I wouldn't change a thing. Some families are bound by blood, others by choice. I was finally choosing myself. As I walked into the Blue Oak Bistro, Several staff members greeted me by name. Gabriella came out from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "The owner's table is ready for you," she said with a warm smile, "and I've opened that bottle of Barolo you love." "Perfect," I replied, following her to my table. "And Gabriella, thank you for being a true friend all these years." She squeezed my hand. "Sometimes the family we choose is better than the one we're born into. No?" I thought about Jason, about the possibility of reconciliation once the dust settled, about the new life I was building for myself, about the strength I'd discovered through adversity. "Yes," I agreed, raising my wine glass in a toast. "To chosen family." As I sat there, surrounded by the success I'd built on my own, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The 77 million inheritance had never been about the money. It had been about recognition, about validation, about being seen. I didn't need my father's money to be seen anymore. I had seen myself, my worth, my value, my strength, and in the end, that was worth more than any inheritance could ever be. The truth, as they say, had set me free.